to the F&T show. I'm Fiona.
And I'm Terynn.
Before we begin, we want to warn you that we will be discussing topics that may not be suitable for some listeners, including the death of a child and murder. Our intent is not to suggest that we think any parties named on this podcast are guilty of any crime. We simply want to add information to the continued dialogue in regards to this piece of evidence in the unsolved murder of JonBenet Ramsey in December of 1996.
In this episode, we will be discussing the infamous ransom note found in the Ramsey family home, where 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was also found dead. The first half of the episode was recorded at the end of January and was Fiona's genuine reaction to reading the ransom note for essentially the first time. In the second part of the show, which we'll probably be releasing as a bonus episode, we'll be going more into the timeline and, of course, a lot more about the ransom note and anything we were uncertain of in the beginning part of our discussion, or anything we may have stated incorrectly should be corrected in this bonus episode. For the true crime lovers, we're just going to be discussing the JonBenet Ramsey ransom note that was found. I personally have watched a lot and read a lot about the case, so I would read this ransom note differently now. Coming at it with some unconscious bias, and maybe having formed a theory without really maybe trying to come in with a clear mind, but maybe thinking, I really think this person wrote it, or I really think this is why it was left. And just knowing, so it's hard to look at it, with as clear a mind as maybe you might be able to come at it. So I'm not sure how much you know about the case. I know you're a little bit more recently into true crime, but I told you to stay away from this case. But I know I know that you I know that you
I only just recently, I have to plug in my laptop. I only recently got into the whole true crime thing. And when we first met, you wanted to present all the facts to me and you got me to watch like a documentary or something on it. But this is back in like 2017, 2018, a long time ago. So I don't remember much. I remember maybe a little bit of bits and pieces. Like if we ever sit and discuss the case, I might be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember ransom note. But like this is like me looking at it again for the first time. I don't remember. I remember a ransom note, but don't remember the content of said note.
And that was the first question, just so the listeners know what information you're coming with already in the info basket about this case. Like what do you know at all about this case? Like who's JonBenet Ramsey, etc. What do you know about it?
Well, I know that she was murdered, and I know that they never found out who did it, and it was like pretty big. I can't even remember the year that it happened or anything like that. Well, I'm assuming in 1996, just because I have the letter sitting here in front of me. But that's all that I really know about it, and just the mysterious circumstances, and that they haven't been able to find out what happened exactly to her.
And do you know where she was found?
I want to say the basement of her house.
Okay. No, just because that could come into play, right? This is a ransom note, presumably, about a kidnapping.
Yeah, and then that's kind of.
So that's important to know if you know that. Just
I'll have a lot of questions as we go on. So would we want to read the letter out, and then we'll kind of go from there and just kind of dissect it, and I'll ask my questions. And once you have way more information on this case than I do. So
so people still have a million questions about a lot of the stuff in this case, but I mostly just want to know, like, when you read this, kind of more like with a fresh mind, what pops out like right away, like what stands out in this, like you're like, what? Or if you were an investigator, I mean, obviously we don't have an investigative training, so a true investigator might look at it differently, but if you try to put yourself in an investigative mindset to the best of your ability, where might you go if this was your first piece of evidence for this case?
Okay, sounds good. I can do that.
All right.
Oh, I'm gonna start, right?
Yeah, you're starting.
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign. What is that word?
Faction.
Faction. That's what I thought. Okay. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter.
Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as the police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand 100% chance of getting her back.
You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC.
Wow, that's quite the letter.
Mm-hmm.
So where was this letter found? I guess is my
Interesting that you refer to it as a letter. That's the first thing I'll note, because they're usually ransom notes, which a note would be shorter. Letters are much longer. So usually kidnappers leave notes that are short and to the point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very long.
There a lot of thought went into this. Like it wasn't like a panicked, quick, let's get this done kind of deal. Like this was planned. A lot of thought went into this. Like even down to the, I don't know, if you talk to a stray dog, she died. Like, and the word of like execution and beheading, like those are just very, I don't know, very
strong.
Yeah, just very in-depth wording. So anyway, where was the letter? Was it found in the house? Was it mailed to them? Was it couriered to them? Like, how did they actually come to get the letter?
So this was found on the spiral staircase leading. So the parents are on the top floor. Their bedroom's on the top floor. Then the children are on their children's bedrooms. JonBenet has an older brother, Burke, who was 9 and she was 6. They're on the second floor. And there's just a spiral staircase that leads down from the parents' bedroom. No, there's a staircase that leads to they're on the 3rd floor. JonBenet and Burke are on the 2nd floor, and the spiral staircase, I believe, leads down to the 1st floor, which is where the kitchen and everything is. Yeah. And the note was found on the spiral staircase leading down to the main floor. When she calls 911, so this is really early in the morning, she calls 911, she does refer to the ransom note. So she had already found. And then when the police arrived on scene, this was the first piece of physical evidence they found. The 911 call initiated the response, but this is what they found first.
Okay.
Well, obviously Patsy had found it, so this is what they had first.
Interesting. So this is shortly after they woke up, and then they found this note on the staircase, and they went to go check on the daughter, and she was gone.
I'd have to listen to the 911 call again, but they said she was gone, so I assumed they checked on her. Maybe we'll have to read. See, no, but it's you can never be too prepared, because you never know what questions people are going to have based on what they need, to interpret what they're reading or seeing. So yes, that actually is a very important thing. So we'll have to,
once again,
we'll have to
timeline thing.
That's a good question. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, to find out what questions you would have, right? So that's the whole point of a crucial conversation or anything like that. You don't necessarily have all the info, but something that we need to find out. So what was your question? Oh, did they check?
Yeah, did they actually see, like, did she go downstairs and get like a coffee, saw the piece of paper on the staircase, and then was like, oh crap, and then went to go confirm that the daughter wasn't there? Did they go in, to go check on the daughter to see if she was still sleeping because they didn't come wake her up? Like, you know what I mean? Just thinking as a parent, like a 6-year-old, that the kid might come in and wake the parent up.
Yep.
Being 6, it's still pretty young. And then the parents wake up and there's no wake up call from the daughter. So it's like, oh, what's going on? Go in and check on her, and she's gone. And then like that panic, well, maybe she's downstairs watching TV. And then they go down the stairs and then they found the note.
Yeah, the timeline. Anything else like stand out to you at all?
Well, the way the letter opens, like, listen carefully. Like, first of all, we're not listening, we're reading. The writing is another thing.
I've heard people read it. I've never actually had an electronic copy that we printed in front of us. And for one thing, I have to say, I find that very creepy, because this is a real life, a little girl was murdered and her body was found in her own home. That's horrible. This is actually what those parents would have seen, what her parents saw on the step. This exact writing and these words about their daughter. Like, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's every parent's like worst nightmare. It's like the unthinkable. Like, yeah.
It's
well, and then knowing that somebody came into, like, once again, I don't know the details. Like, what did somebody come into the house and take her? Like, obviously, if they found it in the morning, they were all in their beds, and gives me the creeps for sure. Yeah. So the writing is definitely like creepy. I've seen spelling mistakes. The amount of money is very odd to me too, like 118,000, like it's just a weird amount, and like the way that they specifically break it down. And an attaché, what is an attaché?
I want to say it's like a briefcase, or just a fancy word for briefcase, but we can look that up. And like, let's look it up right now just to make sure. But
so the word attaché was coined by the French, referring to an administrative member of an ambassador's staff. Ambassadors and their staff, or attachés, I'm assuming that's the person, attaché, carried their papers and documents in slim cases that became known as the attaché case. And then later on down the road, lawyers started using it as well to carry briefs in their case, and that's when it became to be known as the briefcase.
Yeah.
So, an attached case is a small, thin suitcase that opens into 2 distinct compartments that are usually symmetrical.
Adequate size, and not sized, adequate size attaché. So,
and I mean, how do you know what would be in an adequate size, like, for that much money? For like,
that sounds like a fancy way of just saying make sure the money fits in it.
Yeah. Like, how would you, like, if somebody ever told me to bring an adequate sized bag for anything, I wouldn't know. It's like, well, I don't, especially for something like I've never packed before, which I'm sorry, I haven't packed $118,000 worth of money lately.
But they're making him, so this is specifically, I noticed it's specifically to Mr. Ramsey, not the family.
And they mention his name quite a bit at the end too. They by his first name, so they start the name off by Mr., and then at the end they say his name like 4 times?
Yeah, so this, I would assume they're trying to say that the perpetrator, they're going after his daughter for something against him,
Mm-hmm.
not anything to do with the mother.
Yeah, because doesn't he say something about, oh, you and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as authorities. Like,
Yeah, so they're watching everyone, apparently.
John's in
Yeah.
trouble. Like, what did he do?
Johnson. So this 118,000, back to that.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the family's money, like social status or
Well,
money
there's
wealth?
that too. Like their wealth, like I don't know, I don't have that kind of money just kicking around. So obviously whoever sent this letter knew that they had money.
Now, if you knew that they had money, would you just ask for $118,000?
No, I'd ask for more than that.
I would think so too. Like even that is
Like it's a very random number.
and usually I think. What do you mean by random? Before I tell you what I
Like
think
just
you mean.
like 118. Like it's not 120, it's not 115, it's not
Yeah.
150, it's not 100, it's like 118. You might as well throw on 50 cents on the end and call it a day. Like, you know what I mean? It's just such a random choice of numbers.
Yeah, and that's been noted by I don't think I'm an expert. This is all stuff. It's very interesting. You're picking up on that a lot of anything that I've seen that an expert has said, they've
Question, yeah.
also said that. So like, yeah, it's not 110, it's not 150, like 118. Weird.
Yeah.
Also, the Ramseys were not just rich, they were very rich. So
Okay.
118,000, like, no, why would you ask for that? You could go for, I
Yeah.
mean, even a million still wouldn't be much to them, is my understanding. So why you
Yeah.
ask for 118,000? And apparently, um, so that's very specific, like you said, random, specific. It's very close to the bonus that John Ramsey received that year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So what does that mean to you, do you think?
Somebody that worked for the business or somebody that worked alongside whatever business he did. Like I don't know what he did for work. I don't know anything like that, but obviously
I can't remember, but I think he had his own company, but
I would say, like, once again, it's a very specific number.
so does that make you, if you were investigating, who does that make you want to narrow down as a suspect? My, stop.
Maybe like coworkers or somebody that was like in a payroll position or a tax position, an accountant, along those
Ooh.
lines.
So even his family's accountant or someone that worked, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Somebody
Ooh,
that would know,
interesting.
their financial matters. I mean, especially like I'm just finding out about this bonus that he got, right? So I don't know. I didn't know about that prior to it. It's once again, it's a very specific number, and now I'm finding out this bonus. Like, well, who knew about the bonus?
Okay. That's true. And then you mentioned spelling mistakes, which is true. And I think though, it's interesting, and I didn't necessarily notice this because again, I didn't dissect it as much because I've already heard so much about it. I'm pretty sure the spelling mistakes only happen in the first paragraph, I believe they said. And it's just a few. It's business, possession, or wait, is that
Possession,
spelled
yeah.
right? No, that it's missing an S, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and a lot of really hard words are spelled correctly. So it's like they put a double S where there wasn't supposed to be in businesses. Then they left out a double S where there was supposed to be in possession. And that was two sentences back to back right after they said a small foreign faction. So basically, they represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, spelled wrong, but not the country that serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession, spelled wrong. And then I think all the spelling mistakes end. And then they spell adequate. They use the word attaché.
Scrutiny, like
Scrutiny, countermeasures, particularly, like me, that would be a hard one if you like.
enforcement.
Yeah, deviation. I don't know. Immediate with two M's. Like I just law enforcement. Like enforcement is hard to. That's a hard one.
So the other thing I want to pick up on too, when you get home, you'll put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. So he says he's going to, well, the letter states they're going to call between 8 and 10 tomorrow. I'm just trying to think of the timeline. Like, when's this dude supposed to get to the bank and get his money?
That's what's interesting because, again, we need the timeline of when they got home. So this is the morning of Boxing Day.
I was going to say it happened in around Christmas. I do remember that.
I believe they got home from the party. They were at a party. I believe they got home in about before midnight. So on the night of the 25th. I believe. Again, that stuff we'll have to make sure of. And I want to say it was around 9:30, but again, I'd have to look that up. So presumably, and I don't remember when everyone went to sleep. So that we'd have to get that for the timeline, which would be very important because if everyone says they're awake past midnight, it's already the 26th. So when they say tomorrow, do they mean the 27th?
Yeah.
Or do they mean that morning? And was this written Christmas night?
And wouldn't the banks be closed Boxing Day?
It's in the United States. They don't have Boxing Day. I don't think they know what that is, but that's interesting with the bank. Well, it wouldn't be open on Christmas morning. So obviously they must mean Boxing Day or the 27th.
They don't have a Boxing Day?
No.
Interesting. I did not know that. I'm looking up the bank holidays on Google right now in the US.
I love it.
Yeah, Boxing Day is not listed there. Interesting. Learn something new every day. They're closed Christmas Day. I'm looking at the American National Bank website. Once again, this is for 2023. This is for this year. And it just says Christmas Day, not Boxing Day. Interesting. But yeah, holiday is celebrated mostly in Canada, the UK, and other British Commonwealth countries. Some people call Boxing Day second Christmas, since it's another excuse to exchange gifts with your loved ones, find incredible shopping deals and discounts, and spend quality time with family and friends. Sorry, squirrel.
So yeah, we don't know if tomorrow means December.
They don't specify a date. There's no date on the letter when the letter was written and what they mean. Like you would think it'd be more specific, like with dates.
Well, and I think that was confusing because the Ramseys, of course, on the morning of the 26th, the police were there by 6 a.m. So was it between 8 and 10 that day that they were waiting for this call? Or was it a whole other day that they were supposed to go through this? Like,
and they called the police. They didn't warn them not to call the police? Interesting. Because any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. And that's what happened. So they called the police. Interesting.
Anything else in the note that you want to discuss? Or
like they're pretty animate that animate?
No,
like just that if they adamant. Thank you. I'm like,
no problem. I was like, wait, now that you said it, I don't know what it is.
Like, what word is it? If you even talk to a stray dog, if you talk to the bank authorities, if the money's tampered with, like they pretty much go on for a whole page of this letter, basically saying, if you do this, if you do that, this is what's going to happen. Bum, 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 bum. Right? So that's kind of like, you would just say, if you do anything fishy, she dies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you think there would just be like a blanket statement, but they're pretty, like, talk to a stray dog. That's so random.
Okay, so I was just thinking maybe you shouldn't research because I don't want you to be tainted, because we could actually probably just go through the main pieces of evidence without you knowing stuff, so that you ask the right questions. Then you just get the facts, not all the theories and unless you're very excited to research.
No, I'll do whatever.
Yeah, who knows? Because I did the original thing. I did want to just present you the facts, but never, between 2018 and now, like, who had time? Your hand is randomly.
I know, I'm scratching my armpit.
That was so creepy. Yeah. No, I made myself forget what I was gonna say. What did you just say before I said that?
You wanted to first present all the facts so that I wouldn't get tainted by theories and stuff.
Yeah, but because you're not even going somewhere that everyone else is going, and I love it. Now, but you said something about the stray dog. Thank you very much. Squirrel. The stray dog, very interesting that there is the movie Dirty Harry, I believe 1972 or 1971. It's a movie about the kidnapping of a young girl. And the direct quote from the script from the movie is, if you talk to anyone, even if it's a Pekingese on a lamppost, the girl dies. So in this, some experts are saying, if we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. So and it's a movie about a kidnapped little girl. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In the crime scene videos, you can see that, and the experts are saying this, the Ramseys have a lot of movie posters around their house. So presumably someone in the family really enjoyed movies.
Mm-hmm.
Again, two things. Now, are the Ramsey suspects or someone
I don't think you can necessarily take a line out of that letter and pen it to posters, and I don't think that's concrete evidence at all.
Well, no, whoever wrote it, but whoever wrote this might be a movie buff, because there's two others that I'm going to tell you about. We know the Ramseys are movie buffs, but we also know that someone knows that he got $118,000 as a bonus. So again, whoever knows this about them would surely know, maybe not, but could know that the Ramseys are movie buffs and put that in there. Right. Okay. But the other there's another line in here, so apparently from the movie Ransom with Mel Gibson about his son was kidnapped, but I don't know which line it is. I meant to look that up. And then the other one is from Speed. Do you remember? And it's the "Don't try to grow a brain, John." The actual line in Speed is the bomber talking to Keanu Reeves's character on the bus.
Right.
But he actually says, "Do not attempt to grow a brain." You're looking up.
Yeah.
Ransom.
Now listen very carefully. From Dirty Harry. Do not involve the police or the FBI. If you do, I will kill him. From Ransom.
They do specifically say police and FBI.
And then you know that I'm on top of you. Do not attempt to grow a brain. That's from Speed.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And listen carefully. That's how it's funny that you said, and that's what he's a linguistic expert, and he was on the CBS special, the JonBenet case, or the case of JonBenet Ramsey, and he says, what are we listening to? It's a letter.
Yeah. And I'd probably, like, you'd think they would say, like, read carefully, or
mm-hmm. And then one of them pointed out in that special, one of the experts, well, of course they're going to read carefully. Your daughter's gone, and there's a note, like,
but you're not listening because there's nothing to hear. There's nothing to listen
that you
to.
point. Yeah.
And then that's the opening to the letter as well, which is odd.
Mm-hmm. And apparently that was in, what'd you say? That was also Dirty Harry. Listen carefully.
Listen carefully. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, usually Ransom Notes, the linguistic expert in that special, I have his name. Let me tell you.
We're running out of time again.
Jim Fitzgerald. He said that, and I'm going to quote, "There's a treasure trove of information that is unprecedented in the annals of criminal justice history, as far as I know, that both a ransom note requesting money and the body is left behind at the scene."
Yeah.
So this never happens. And he had an example of 3 ransom notes from famous cases, including Charles Lindbergh. His baby was, the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped and later found dead, but outside the home. But they're all very short, like not even a page long, half a page. Basically, like, they say, "I have your daughter or son. This is what I want. Don't do this." And that's it.
Yep.
So never, this is a letter, like you said, not a note.
Mm-mm.
So that's high risk behavior, says another. Those were not my words. That's one of the experts. High risk behavior for someone to sit there and write a note this long.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was obviously premeditated too, because, like, there's some pretty specific information in there. The time, the money, the multiple ways of threats, like if you talk to a stray dog.
Mm-hmm. and like overkill, bad term, but maybe like we get the picture. Like you don't have to say like executed, beheaded, die. She
Yeah.
dies. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it sounds like
It could
to
be a scare
me that
tactic
they
though, like
aren't,
with some urgency behind it, maybe.
or that they weren't, that they're, that maybe she was already dead, or they didn't really believe they were going to kill. I don't know, because it's like they were really trying to convince themselves that she's going to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, or trying to convince someone that she's going to die. Maybe it was because they knew she was already dead. They were kind of, I don't know, trying to make it uh more urgent, like you said, because they knew she was going to be found dead. So like they gave all the reasons she might die, so that she's already dead. There's no hope of getting her back. So basically, they had to outline every reason that you killed her.
Well, so interesting fact, yeah, like, and I'm just finding out like she was found in the house. So she was already in the house when the parents found this note. The timeline of it all, like when you look at the threats, like if you do this, if you do that, if you do this, like basically trying to hit home that if they fuck up at all,
Yeah.
that this little girl is going to meet her end, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then interestingly enough, so they call the police. Like I'm just finding this information as we're talking tonight. They made the 911 phone call at 6. So we're going to say that they found this letter in and around 6 o'clock in the morning. And then the father found her like 6, 7 hours later. So she must have been in the house. Like, was she in the house the whole time? Like,
That.
or did like somebody like try to smuggle her body in with like the place crawling with police? Like,
Mm-hmm. Who know? I don't like. That's not.
yeah, so it's almost like they already knew that she was, and that this was just an attempt to get some money out of the situation as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like that's a possibility. You will also be denied her remains for a proper burial. Any deviations from my instructions will result in the immediate execution. And you will be denied her remains. Like even like I don't know, I would never word anything like that. It's very fancy.
Mm-hmm. And
Like it starts off like the writing's kind of like all shaky and jaggedy and like sloppy and like the
mm-hmm.
errors, and then as you go on down here, like you're getting any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. The different tone, the different
It's very specific. Bring this attaché, get these bills, and then
yeah.
talk to a stray dog. She dies. What? Talk to a
Dog
stray dog.
thing.
Who's gonna
Yeah,
talk to
like
her?
that would be the last thing on your mind in a
Well,
moment like that. Like, why would anybody even write that?
and basically, it to me that's saying she's just dead. Almost, it doesn't matter what you're doing. She's dead.
Talk to a stray dog. I'm so puzzled by that.
I didn't look at the autopsy report yet or anything. I have at one point. But just for the sake of this, northernhighlands.org says that when she was found, her body was completely set with rigor mortis, which indicates between 10 p.m. on December 25th and 6 a.m. on December 26th. So they're saying she's dead before they even find the ransom note, and possibly even shortly after she arrived home. What are you thinking right now?
I think it was planned. I think that a lot of thought was gone into this letter. Like it wasn't like an accident. I feel like just reading this, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't an oh shit. It was, it was planned. I feel like it was planned out. I think it was somebody close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether close to him, close to the daughter, close to the family, I don't know how big that spectrum is. Because once again, it just blows my mind that anybody would want to harm a cute little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's that. Like, no matter what kind of beef I had with anybody, I couldn't even, But, they're saying that there's some kind of organization, right? So if it's like the
All foreign
mob or
factions.
something, and if it was like the mob, why would they go after the daughter? Why wouldn't they just go after him and then send the ransom note to the wife or whatever, like why the little girl? And you said there was a wife and a brother too, right? So I don't know. It's just
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that's interesting.
very, very specific,
Mm-hmm.
very well thought out, but at the same time, almost urgent. Like with the whole, if you do this, she dies. If you do that, she dies. And the money, like, you know, and the amount of money and, you know, the planning out of I'll call you between 8 and 10, like just the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. No, and I know that you only have this information, so it's just interesting how, and this would be happening to investigators. Again, they're trained and they have a lot more they have experience, we don't. But imagine, like, this is the first forensic evidence
Oh my
or
god.
piece of evidence they're getting as well. So imagine, I have no idea what they were thinking, but it's interesting that you feel that obviously it's a big threat. Seems like this person means business or is very, or maybe she's already in it, I don't know, but it's very specific. And so it does seem like it may be someone very close to them. And you're right. Why the daughter? Because they have a 9-year-old son, Burke, and they have a 6-year-old daughter. So why was JonBenet the victim? Right. And who do they have the beef with? It would seem to be Mr. Ramsey. So why go after his daughter for this beef? Right. Like, so right away there, you're left with obviously a lot of questions. And now that you know, like, if you were reading this, you wouldn't know. I assume that you might assume she's kidnapped, so she's not in the house and she could be alive, right? Now that you know that she was actually in the house and she's found dead later that day, who knows when she was killed exactly? We'll get more on that later. Now, what do you think about this note? Like, knowing it doesn't seem to be a kidnapping.
Cover up.
Now that you know that it doesn't seem to be kidnapping, I don't know, what is your theory based on like very little information? I know that obviously the more info in the basket that you get, you know, it's going to change, right?
Honestly, don't know, because the note says to me that it was planned, but once again, I can't fathom who would want to plan to hurt a little girl. I also feel like there's a sense of urgency in the note. But then but I also know that she was most likely already gone when they found this note. I don't know.
I guess I'm trying not to ask leading questions. It's hard, isn't it? So do you feel this note was written well in advance of the crime? Do you feel they really were planning to kidnap and something went wrong and they had to kill her there? Well, I don't know. Like, when was she killed, or how did her body get there? But you don't have these answers from just a note.
I don't have enough information to conclude this segment. I still have too many questions.
Oh, I guess here's one. In general, for ransom notes, if someone's going to plot the kidnapping of a child and then steal them from their home and leave a ransom note for the parents, in general, would you assume the notes are written and then brought with the person so they can just drop there, take the kid and leave?
I would say the kid would have to be taken and then the note would be left on the way out the door.
And the note, but they brought the note with them?
Yeah.
Typically, that's what I would also assume, because
you'd want to have it prepared ahead of time. You wouldn't want to be like, oh, okay, I've got the kid like all tied up in the back seat of my car, I'm going to write a ransom note. Like I would think that you'd want to make the transaction quick and easy.
That's what I would think too. And you want to spend the least amount of time in the crime scene, it's you know, then as possible. So this length of a note, to me, I would assume for sure must have been written before the person went in. Like any note, I would assume, but especially one this long and well thought out, like you said.
Are you going to tell me they wrote in the house?
Well, then I'm going to just give you some more information. And that wasn't
they wrote in the house
so that I could drop this, you know, bomb. But yeah, it was apparently, yeah, not just, it just wasn't. So listen to this. It was written in the house. Okay. It was written on a notepad that belonged to Patsy Ramsey, the mother, and which was located on her writing desk in the hall. It was put back. The writing pad was put back where it belonged. The pen that was used was a Sharpie pen, and it was found in a jar of pens in the kitchen near the phone that the mother used to call 911. Okay.
What?
And Patsy had confirmed that those pens were hers, and it was put back in the jar. So the note was left, the pad was put back, the pen was put back
In 2 different spots.
Yeah, in 2 different spots, because the pad is the writing desk in the. Yeah, I think the writing desk was in the hall, and the jar of pens is on a table in the kitchen near the phone. And even worse, there was 2 practice notes found. Like, oh, now I have to look. Wait, what was the exact?
What?
They also found 2 practice notes. Now I need to know. I thought that was self-explanatory, but I don't know if they found out balled up practice notes or just scribbles underneath. Now I have to look that up. But anyway, they have confirmed that whoever wrote it practiced on the pad, wrote this long note in the house, used the materials in the house that unfortunately belonged to the mother. I don't know if that, and put them back. Not just left them there, put them back
Where they belonged. Yeah, like
That's
in their
weird.
actual home.
That doesn't, to me right away, that and you have to use. I really don't like doing generalizations about gender and stuff. I hate that. But I do know in forensic analysis and stuff, sometimes to try to narrow down a suspect, you have to use profiles. And to me, that does typically sound more like a neat freak or something a woman would do. Put stuff back where it belongs, right? Instead of just, to me, it doesn't sound like a sadistic male sexual predator
behavior
to me at all. But
if anything, he would probably like just keep the pen and then get rid of it later or something like that.
Yeah, or just leave it there, because what does he care? Is I don't know. But again, I don't know. I'm not saying. So now I don't even know if the person that wrote this killed her. Like, that's confusing to me, very confusing to me. Right? So we're all going to assume that the person that killed her wrote this note because that's what it's a kidnapping, and she's either going to live or die, and she died. So if we can figure out who wrote this note, they killed her. Now I'm like, but now I need to know what kind of a crime it was to kind of profile, like what was, to see, would it be, because to me, just even alone putting the things away, I'm like, woman. Like, I don't know. Please don't get me wrong, there are men who are very neat, but I don't think too many that commit crimes like this, but then again, I don't know too many women who are neat that commit crimes like this either. So that leads me to believe maybe they're not connected. They're led, you're led to believe they're connected, but maybe whoever wrote this note is not a killer.
And they never found out who did it, right? It's still an unsolved case.
Yes, it is. And one last thing I'll leave you with for tonight is that the forensic linguist, Jim Fitzgerald, he went through it and he did say his linguistic profile that he came up with, this is one expert's opinion, the writing ability is high. The first language of this person is English. They're a native English speaker. The gender is female. Whoever wrote this note, he's not. And then there were 6 examples of maternalistic, not just female, I think maternalistic. I don't know if he means all women are maternalistic or if he means more like a mother. I don't know. Language style. And 3 of them, he says, is listen carefully, because, like to a kid, like listen carefully.
Yeah.
Okay. When you get home, right? This person is saying, when you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag, and not when you get to your house. Like, that's very specific. Home, like home is nice, and and to a kid, like when you get home, you clean your room, right? And then the other one is do not particularly like you. So that's that was probably really loud in there. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you. So I advise you, well, like the guy said, men don't really care typically if someone particularly likes them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like words, like that a woman might use to not hurt people's feelings, but trying to say we don't like you.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that when they were writing, it was do particularly like you, but they forgot to put that, so they did an arrow and had to put not in there. So originally wrote, the two gentlemen watching over your daughter do particularly like you, and then not.
So I advise you not to provoke them.
And it is interesting. They give a clue. The two gentlemen. I mean, if that's true, there's two gentlemen.
And gentlemen, like not men. Like like obviously anybody who's holding a 6-year-old girl, they're not gentlemen.
No, so it's very weird, isn't it? The letter.
Yeah.
And isn't that shocking that it was written in the, like, what is that?
Yeah, the fact that it was written in the house, that blows my mind.
Oh, and the people on this CBS special, they just wrote word for word to see how long it would take them just to write the words, not think of the words, do the two practice notes, find the pen, find the thing. First murder the kid, or maybe murder the kid after. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Presuming that the person that wrote the note killed the kid.
Yeah.
Right. Again, we don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
But it took them 21.5 minutes just to rewrite this.
3
verbatim.
times?
Pardon me?
3 times or just the one time?
Just one time. 21 minutes. And that's verbatim. Like, that's like, oh, I have a script. I have to sit here and write it. Oh my God, I hope they don't come home. Like, wow. Or I guess that the person knew they were home. I hope they don't wake up before I leave or whatever.
That's crazy.
But if you're going to do a kidnapping, you're hoping that they have some supplies for you to write the note.
Yeah, I know.
And like,
not unless the agenda changed somewhere along the way.
What do you mean? You think they went in there?
Like, once again, I don't know how. I don't know what happened to the JonBenet. Like, I don't know how she died. I don't know where. Like, she was actually, like, I know they found her in the basement, but I don't know where. Like, so did they break in at some point in the night to kidnap her, and they killed her by accident and then had to cover the tracks? Did they? I don't know. It all depends on what maybe the intent was to go in and hurt John by hurting JonBenet, and thought about it after the fact. Oh, hey, everybody's still asleep. Let's try and get some money out of this guy at the same time. Right? Who knows? So
the only people that people know were in the house that night were Patsy the mom, John the father, JonBenet, and the brother Burke. That's the only people know for sure in the house. That investigators know for sure.
Because they were also at a party, right? There could have, and it sounds like it's a pretty big house. So somebody could have like got in at some point while they were at the party and like hid in the house.
Oh, interesting. That is actually one of the things people are, I guess, one of the theories, and I'm not sure if people ruled that out or not, but yeah. Definitely creepy.
Very creepy.
But the only one of the people that they know were there, since the note was written inside the house, they got handwriting samples from the 3 of them. The only one they couldn't rule out conclusively was Patsy Ramsey.
It's going to be really hard for me not to research this case now.
Well, you can, because we're going to stick to the facts.
I like you to. Oh, look, I just disappeared.
Because you know what? I've heard all this noise, and that's why sometimes I'm like, wait, I don't know if that's true or not, or if I just heard this in an article, and if that's actually fact. So you could do it, because that's what we're going to do, is stick to the facts. And but sadly, the facts now, it seems this person has said linguistically seems like a female. It gave me the vibes of being a female. It's on stuff in the house. So to me, and it was written in the house. So definitely was written in the house. The only people we know that were there at the time were those 3. Again, could be an intruder. If it was a female, could it be just that they were the writer of the note for whatever reason and not the perpetrator? So
it's true.
But why? If they're not the perpetrator, would they write a note?
Maybe they were involved somehow.
And I definitely don't want to do any theories or put anyone's name out there, right? But just interesting. So if it is female, they think a female wrote this note. So did a female commit this horrendous act, or was there 2? If it's intruders, was there 2 intruders, a female and a male, or
yeah,
interesting, because I've heard.
And did the female who wrote the note think that it was just going to be a kidnapping, and somewhere along the lines the intent changed?
Right. If they came in while they were at the party, they would have had a long time to write it. So
true.
maybe they were just hanging out, and there was two of them, and a female
Yeah.
wrote the note, and they were just waiting.
Maybe they practiced it while they were at the party.
Because that's interesting. Because if it was someone that really knew the Ramseys and maybe went in their house all the time or had access to their house, maybe they weren't even an intruder. And if they had been caught there, they could have just said, "Oh, I was doing this," or maybe they just knew enough about the house to get out in case they came home early or whatever. So actually, I'd never really thought of that. So because it seems weird that this would take so long to write, but maybe they had been in there forever waiting.
And you would think that if you were like, adrenaline pumping, because you would, no matter how methodical or how planned out, you'd have your adrenaline would be going. You're not gonna, I just can't picture sitting there writing a note.
And with the horrible things that they're saying.
Yeah.
And that apparently they're going to do if they don't get their money,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's interesting.
And you said it took 21 minutes just to write it, not to actually think of what you actually wanted to, the message that you wanted to convey. Very interesting indeed. We'll have to do more on this. That was interesting.
And that's it. Thanks so much for listening. The show really wouldn't be possible without you. If you're a fan of the show, please leave a review on where you listen to your podcast. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at F&T Show Podcast and on YouTube at the F&T Show. Links are in the show notes.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks to everyone listening at home. Until our next episode, we leave you with this. We are all on Team Human. And of course, don't forget to be smart and shit.